turn my speaker on. If everybody could turn theirs on as well, I apologize not having it on sooner. We have a proclamation this week for National Public Works Week. So let everyone know Public Works, a huge proponent of that organization here within the city, led by Riley, keeping the parks clean. For one, doing odds and ends jobs when we sold the old Spruce building and moved people into the new or the renovated building. They did a lot of that work and the heavy lifting. They do a lot of work that is just gone, forgotten, and we take for granted as a city. So I just want to say thank you to them and read this proclamation. National Public Works Week, May 2025. Whereas the public works services provided in our community are an integral part of our citizens' everyday lives, and whereas the support of and understanding and informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operation of public works systems and programs such as water, sewers, streets, and highways, public buildings, and solid waste collection. And whereas the health, safety, and comfort of this community greatly depends on the facilities and services. Whereas the quality and effectiveness of these facilities, as well as their planning, design, and construction, is vitally dependent upon the efforts and skill of public works officials. Whereas the efficiency of the qualified and dedicated personnel who staff public works departments is materially influenced by the people's attitude and understanding of the importance of the work they perform. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Todd Deinhardt, do hereby recognize the week of May 18 through 2020 or through 2025 as a National Public Works Week, and I call this observance to the attention of all our citizens and civic organizations to acquaint themselves with the issues involved in providing our public works and to recognize the contributions which public works officials make every day to our health, safety, and comfort and quality of life. I should add there as well some of the things that they do. Is that somebody's phone? Okay. Public Works takes a lot of the grunt of our community. I like to say that we all get along and are a wonderful, harmonious community. There are sometimes, where people's water gets shut off or, there's disagreements. They take a lot of that. We have individuals that work inside City Hall that answer those phones. We have people that work in our water treatment and our sewer treatment. People can say what they want about the sewers and the water here. It passed the quality test and we get clean reports. I didn't want people to appreciate what our group of 20 individuals does for our 6,500 residents here. And so I don't take this here lightly. Riley, I say thank you to you and all your individuals. Tomorrow there'll be an all-employee lunch put on, not by the city, but by management and others of us here to say, hey, thank you, Public Works, and also everyone else that works for the city. So anything you want to say, sir?
No, I greatly appreciate that, and I'm very proud of being part of the Public Works crew with the City of Woodland. Crew does a great job day to day. They really take a passion in what they do, and I really appreciate that. So they do a wonderful job, but thank you for the recognition.
Yep. Okay. Any comments or questions about that proclamation? Citizen communications for items not on the agenda. Keith.
Good evening. Planners Days, June 19th through the 22nd. The schedule is now online, and we're going to have a thank you for El Pitron. They're our first fireworks sponsor. The princesses are out selling raffle tickets. We'll have a monthly meeting tomorrow, and they'll probably be there selling tickets if anybody wants to catch them. The prize patrol is out and about collecting prizes. A thank you to Highline Homes for our gazebo entertainment sponsorship. Again, the meeting is tomorrow, 6 p.m. at the VFW. Most of the stuff should be online for everybody now. The bed races forums and the forums, if anybody wants to do prizes or sponsorships, they're there. Any questions?
I have none. Any from City Council or anyone else in the community have questions about Planners Days? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. anyone else online or in the community that would like to address council or myself? Not on the agenda. All right, with that, we will go into agenda approval.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
So I've got a first by Ms. Rounds and a second by Mr. Burke. Any questions or comments from others on city council? Ms. Hogan.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
All right, moving into reports of standing committees, public safety.
Okay, our public safety met at 5:30 tonight. In attendance, we had Chief, Councilmember Houston, Councilmember Friend, and myself. On June 1st, we have two officers that will be starting. Carl Smith will be entry level, and he will be attending the academy around July 2nd, and will be finishing up in November. And then Chris Henderly will be in advanced entry level. He has already attended the academy and will be beginning his field training, and it will be about 3 months long. We will then be left with one opening, and oral boards will hopefully be completed by the end of June, and hopefully have a filled position. Hopefully we'll have filled that position by September with a lateral candidate. There is an MOU for our school resource officer on the agenda tonight, and it has the full support of our public safety committee. And then for all of our cars, we have now gotten them all in, and they are currently being outfitted. There are 3 of them. One is almost complete, and that will leave 2 more left to finish up. And that will leave all of our officers, including the 2 coming in, and even the 1 opening, with everyone having a car when all is said and done. So that's great. And our car cameras have arrived, and they just need to be installed by Axon. And so that will be done. They will send out 2 representatives, hopefully, to get those done, and we'll be using a bay out in the shop to get those completed through. So that will be awesome to finally have those installed in our police cars as well. So that's exciting. And we ended our meeting at 5:51, and our next meeting will be June 16th at 5:30, and a reminder that our July meeting has been canceled. And then that will move me on.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Any questions or comments about public safety? The only thing I would throw out here with public safety, more kudos over to Chief and the individuals on our in our guild. We've talked about it very briefly several months ago, but you'll notice, and especially with these new cars that are coming, there's a little bit new design. They're black, whereas the other ones had a little bit of black, a little bit of white. That actually is cheaper where it's all black now. Previously we had to paint the door and the decaling, so it actually saves us money, and it's a design that the guild officers all selected, and it kind of, as a collaboration thing, they thought it was neat to do. So, as you touched on the 3 cars coming. Okay.
And then that will bring me to our HR committee report. We met at 6:02. In attendance was the mayor, Councilmember Frymark, and myself. We currently have some open positions down at City Hall. We have the city treasurer position opened, and we had quite a bit of candidates opened this last time around, about 90 that applied. We completed our first round of interviews with our staff, and we are down to our second round of interviews that will be with the mayor and some of us from council. That will be either later this week or into next week. And then we have our clerk position. The first round was completed last week with those in City Hall, and the the second round will be next week, and that's all being done internally, not with the mayor or anybody from city council. And then we also have 2 summer help positions, and the interviews were last week with Riley, and we will be offering some. You offer them today?
Yeah, 2 started today.
Oh, 2 started today. So those have been filled. So that's awesome. And that was wrapped up at 6:11 this evening. And our next meeting will also be June 16th at 6 o'clock.
Any questions from the community or city council on HR at the city? All right. Moving into finance.
All right. So finance met tonight at 6:13. In attendance were Councilmember Rounds, Councilmember Houston, the mayor, and myself. Tonight we'll be doing an in-depth review of the 2024 books, which are now closed. Just kind of a note on that, our reserves increased by over $3 million at the city, which is a huge win. We are also working with the CPA to finalize everything from January to May, making sure that all of the accounts are coded appropriately and getting everything up to date. Also coming up, there's an annual audit that's going to be starting end of June, beginning of July, which, just so everybody's aware, is mandated by the state. It's something we have to do every year, so it's not something we selected. It's just a requirement that we have to have that audit annually.
Any questions on finance report from city council or members of the community? We'll go through the in-depth financials here in a little bit. Any comments or questions? All right, moving into reports of city council.
Yeah, our softball team at Woodland High School has made it to state, and they will be traveling this week to state, and that's super exciting. Districts will be happening for our track the 28th, so that's exciting too. And graduation is coming up, and we have brought back some things for our graduates this year that have not been around since pre-COVID. So that's also thanks to some in our community that are offering to help bring some of those traditions back that we haven't seen in several years. So I just want to thank the community for doing that. And a tidbit of information that I found today, for anybody wondering, that the class of 2025 in the United States is the largest class on record in the United States that they have ever seen. And so that brings a lot of challenges for the colleges and for our graduates. And after this year, you will start seeing a decline in the numbers as well. But it has definitely seen some challenges in acceptance to colleges have been delayed for some, and even in some programs that you will see as they try to get into nursing programs and things like that too. It will just kind of have a trickle effect for this class, but the numbers have been astronomical, and so it's a pretty interesting fact, I thought. So
I just wanted to say, as filing deadline was closed, it's good to see people stepping up and running for council, the community getting involved. That was good to see. So thank you, whoever applied and is running. It's nice to see people coming out.
I just wanted to mention we had a Rotary golf tournament last week, and it turned out very well. The day was gorgeous, and I think everybody had a good time. So
I heard good things about it. So,
Just something to add, I don't know if anyone in the community's seen this, but Columbia Elementary in Woodland was recognized by the Washington State School Recognition Program, which actually places that school at the top 16% of schools in the state of Washington. So I think that's a really great achievement for that school to see that recognition come through for a lot of their work and like disability programs and things that they've been doing at the school. There's articles about it on the school district site, so if you want to check it out and learn more, it's a great place to see it.
agreed. Any other? All right. Questions from anybody? All right. Advice advisory committees. Chamber of Commerce, come on up, Keith.
Good evening, Keith Belisle, Interim Director of the Chamber of Commerce. Chamber had 2 new members for April. New memberships are 50% off for the remainder of the year starting June 23rd. So it's a good time to sign up for the Chamber. You can join as an individual, you can join as a company. If you have questions, come and see me. All are welcome to attend our weekly Chamber meetings, Tuesday at noon. Tomorrow we'll have ours at noon. Tomorrow's program will be about Chamber promotions and value and a member mixer, so members are able to give a little bit of maybe a 5-minute mention about what they're doing, maybe 2 minutes probably. Upcoming events, Thursday, May 22nd, after hours at Be the Village with Basic Harmony, and that's over by Lakeside Suites. The public is welcome to come to that. Saturday, June 21st, the Chamber Beer Garden at Planners Days. We're getting all those details nailed down. We're going to have axe throwing there. It's not going to be a real axe. It's going to be a kind of a safety axe, but it'll be fun. Music and beer, of course. Let's see, Thursday the 24th, we'll have Chamber After Hours at the Woodland Library with the Woodland Friends of the Library. And Thursday, August 14th, Chamber will have their golf tournament. And if you need information on that, you can go to the website, woodlandwachamber.com, or come and see me. The Visitor Center welcomed 187 visitors in the month of April. All the summertime destinations, the usual ones, are open, except for Johnson Ridge. And the Visitor Center at Silver Lake has been closed for renovations. It reopens on May 31st. And they've redone all their exhibits in there. I won't be able to go up on the 31st, but I'll be going up there soon. And passes and Discover passes are available at the Visitor Center when we're open. We're closed on Tuesdays.
Excellent. Any questions, comments for Keith regarding the Chamber from council or the community?
All right. Thank you.
Oh, I guess I will give a plug. May 27th, I will be speaking at Chamber. Don't forget.
Mention that?
No, you skipped right over me, Keith. It's all good.
Actually have it right here. I have it right here. I don't know. I got sidetracked, right? So tomorrow, the Chamber will be about Chamber value and member mixer. Next week on the 27th, we have Mayor Todd Deinhardt.
It's all good.
I was looking forward to saying that too, so, but thank you.
It's all good. I just like to give you a little flack there, sir. All right. Moving into reports to city officers, mayor. So before I get into the financials, a couple things here. Planning Commission, we have an opening there that expires, the individual that's there now, it expires on June 1st. I would encourage anyone that is interested in our zoning and interested in the things that are going on in our community, ordinances and things. Please get involved. Building code, all that, it goes through the Planning Commission. Now is your opportunity to apply and get appointed onto that. Compensation Committee. We have 3 seats that are open there. One is an unexpired term, and we have 2 other openings. Compensation Committee goes through and looks and says, hey, what should the mayor make? What should city council make? This is your opportunity as a citizens to say, hey, listen, are they overpaid, underpaid, adequately paid? You know, what is your view on that? That is your opportunity. So we have 3 seats on that that are open, and it typically is 1 or 2 meetings throughout the year is all. Okay? Upcoming events also, May 26th, so next Monday, offices will be closed. June 2nd, there's a city council meeting. June 16th is a city council meeting. And then the next planning commission meeting will be June 19th. Any questions on those things before we go through some financials? So, Amanda, show it here in the room. One of the things that was important to me as an elected official was making sure that our community knows where our money is spent and that it's spent appropriately. It's not my money, it's our money all together, and we need to make sure that we're spending it. So I want to go through this. It'll take us about 10 minutes, but I think it's well worth our time for individuals to say, hey, listen, this is what we did with our money in 2024. So going down right off the top, taxes will, in the bold, I'll put there. What I would have you look at, let's just look at the year-to-date column is all we'll look at. So it's kind of halfway in the middle. You can see our taxes were about $755,000 more than what we had budgeted for. Let's not get everyone excited here about that piece. This was not increases of property taxes. This came through as use taxes. So as people bought more at Walmart, or people bought at previously what was Lazy or RV, Lazy Day RV, that is a big contributor to us. So actually that RV, which is now Camping World, is our biggest contributor of sales tax in the city of Woodland. So we were up about $755,000 on those taxes. Moving down, if you look down to our other fees, we were unfavorable about $157,000. There on the right, you can right where she's highlighted, you can see we're unfavorable about $157,000. Some of that was plan development, where we thought that we would have more permitting costs that would come through as you go through there. So that was $152,000 of it. And then as we continue on, you got non-court fees and you got miscellaneous fees that were up. At the end of the day, our grand total revenues were just about $1 million favorable to budget. Thank you to sales tax use. So when we talk about, congestion, traffic, people coming into our city, it is good to see individuals purchasing our goods and services, because that is a windfall. Then as you go down the list here, you can see where we had unfavorable items. So street was unfavorable $200,000, park was unfavorable $95,000, the police building and the fire was $800,000 unfavorable as far as revenues that we thought we would collect, and those revenues come over from the general fund. So if you go over to the next page, Amanda, you go down these, you can look at, we have sidewalks, we have Davidson Avenue, we have account 327 there that says COG STP Transportation Exit 21. We put in our budget when it was built that we would collect $3.5 million on our Exit 21 study. If you remember, we got $2.6 million from Cowlitz County. That comes in as we spend it. So kind of a budget, below here, we said, we're gonna get the whole $2.6 million. Well, no, the whole $2.6 million didn't come in because we didn't spend the whole $2.6 million. We also had $600,000 that we received from CW COG that we gave back that money because it was a double. We didn't need the full $600,000 of the 2.6, so we gave that funding back early last year. So you can see those revenues were unfavorable, $3 million, and you can go down the list. And so as you get down to sewer, our sewer revenues were unfavorable, $2.9 million. Again, part of that was we thought we would be doing a sewer project. So we'd be collecting the revenue and we'd be transferring some dollars from the general fund. So at the end of the day, our revenues though were down $6.4 million. We had a budget of $31.3 million there, and we had a actual come in the door of $2.4 million. Okay? Moving to the next page, here's our expenditures. Looking in that center column again, if you look, see total, that bold line that says total general government services, we are over budget $23,000. And you're like, okay, what did we do here? So we saved about $190,000 and $180,000 executive, legislative. So legislative is city council members. Municipal is our costs that we pay to the courts. So you can see we saved about $20,000 of what we paid to the courts. Executive, which is the mayor and the administrative city administrator that we used to have. So no longer having a city administrator and cutting the executive expenses that the mayor spends, we saved $200,000 in that line item right there last year. Going down the budgeting and accounting, I know that there's been questions about why we had an outside CPA firm working. We saved $69,000 this year. We had somebody that was on FMLA. We still were paying them. I was not interested in hiring somebody while somebody was on FMLA. It was cheaper to use that outside service, and we still came in $69,000 favorable. Legal services, I have to give kudos to Emily and her firm that is on the phone here. We saved $60,000 in legal fees. We previously had Frank that was here, right, wrong, or indifferent. He had a different approach, and his methodology was a little bit different than what I was going for. We did an RFP. I appreciate City Council that's sitting here, these individuals. They agreed and said, hey, let's do an RFP. And so legal fees were about $60,000 favorable. That's huge for our town. Now the overspend here was the general facilities. So this was $360,000 over budget. This was for random items throughout the city and for Riley, I just slipped my mind of nope, Civic Center is down below. It's the nope. I will think of it here in a second. So our general facilities is the I don't have it in front of me. It's on my computer. I'll come back to it in a second. I'll remember it. So total services, we were $23,000 over budget on that. Then as we go down into our individual departments, looking at our staff that's over here to the right, we have community development. Budget was over $7,000. Planning saved $55,000. Travis did a great job this last year, maneuvering some of his positions. Remember, we consolidated our permit tech and our code enforcement, saving us some money. The building department saved some money on outside services. The Civic Center, that's where the $227,000 is over budget. So there was $300,000 in the budget. We spent $527,000. If you look at the contract we had, that contract was to basically pound materials into the wall. It did not include any materials. So that contract was previously signed in 2023. We've done our best job to recover those, but that was $200,000 over budget. Police Department, Chief Gibbs over here did a great job coming in last year, towards the end of the year. He was interim since July, August time frame, and then became our permanent. Was able to find efficiencies and find offsets of $209,000. Code enforcement was a savings of $20,000. So as you go down there, our general expenses, even after the Civic Center, was $85,000 that we saved on administrative, general type of expenses around in our city here. So then as you go down and you look at the park funds and the street, and if you go to our general reserves, our hotel motel, and then if you go down to the police, and you just keep scrolling down all of those expenditures, obviously $3 million difference in transportation, but if you keep going, scrolling down here, Amanda, you can see our expenditures were $21 million versus a budget of $31 million. A $10 million savings off of that. Again, some of that is project funds where we didn't get the revenue, so we didn't have the expenditure. But I just want to give a shout out to this management team and this staff. I know people get frustrated and say, what is the city of Woodland doing? I want this, and I'm looking at some of my friends here in the front row who will call me and say, Mr. Dinehart, I see this over here. These individuals to my right here have busted their rear in 2024. What does this mean for our city? Okay, can you flip that, Amanda? There you go. We're cash based. What cash comes in, cash goes out. We invest it. If we don't have cash, we can't do anything. So here is where our cash has been. 2022, you can see on the far left-hand side, our cash was about $13 million. You can see the general fund was $5.4 million. We had ARPA dollars that were sitting in there, so that kind of skews it quite a bit. We thought we were going to be doing a project. So at the end of the day, that's why general fund is a little bit more. But our total cash for the city of Woodland and our reserves balances was $13 million in 2022. At the end of 2023, when I took office, we were at $14.6 million, 14.67. You can see in 2024, as a result of the city council and our staff and what we've done as a community, our reserves are up $3.2 million from 2024 to $17.9 million. If you scroll to those fund balances, you can see where they are here. The general fund is that blue at the bottom. You can see it was substantially larger in 2022 because of those federal dollars that came in, but you can see how we've grown and increased them in 2024. Next slide. So this here, what do we do with our cash? It doesn't sit in the bank in a checking account. We invest it and we buy bonds. So those items in red, I wanted to point out, those are the ones that we've gone out to market since I've been mayor and said, hey, listen, what can we do to invest? So you can see we've got $12.1 million out there that we've bought bonds. And I wanted to show the yield, so you can see that first bond for $1 million. It comes to maturity in August, and it yields us 0.33% a year. So it gives us $3,300 on $1 million. Yes, it's disappointing to know that we're only getting 0.33. You go to bond 2, 0.47%, 0.5%, 0.47, 0.84, 1.19. Well, one of the things that I've done over the last year, I meet with our investment broker, individual named Peter Parker, and we have come up with a strategy that says, hey, it would be great if our bonds would mature on a quarterly or semi-annually at the most, because if you for some reason don't have collection of property taxes and sales tax revenue coming in each month, you would need to go and cash your bonds early and pay a penalty. So it's nice to know, okay, what things are out there and what is happening, and we can just sell them, or they come to maturity every 3 to 6 months. So you can see from 7 through 12, the maturity date. The first one is January 2027. We have a yield of 4.85. And you might say, okay, well, why is the yield slightly heavier? Yes, the bond market is a little bit higher now, but also we are willing to do a callable bond. A callable bond means that the issuer of that bond, they can call it and say, you know what, the market has crashed, it's lower, and instead of me paying you 4.85, I'll pay you the penalty, and I'm going to cash you out of it. So what do I have to do? I have the money, we do, and we just go buy a new bond. There's no risk to the city, so somebody wants to call it and cash early. That's okay. I think making 4.85% on 1.1 million, and so just last week, our largest bond had a maturity that came due for $1.5 million. We were able to get 4.07% yield, and it matures at the end of May of 2029, and it's callable, so somebody could, but they can only call it one time a year. So the next time they could call it would be May of 2026, and then May of 2027. But again, that is a huge difference, 4% versus 0.33%. That is money that we as a city earn. Any questions or comments from council or city individuals here that would like to ask about our financials? Again, this is your money. This is the hard work of our city employees and the approval of our city council members here.
Just like to say thank you.
Hey, it's all good. No thanks necessary. Just come to city council and be a member of the community here and be part of it. Okay? If there's no questions or comments, we will continue on. I just wanted to be able to share that at the end of 2024, where we were at. Moving into consent items.
Motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any conversation around the minutes from anyone online or in the community or city council? Ms. Hogan, I have a first and a second.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action items. Action item C, approve vouchers, May 2025, first half.
Making a motion to approve action item C.
Second.
Any conversation from the community? Any questions about the vouchers that are out there? Any conversation or questions from community members? All right, I have a first and a second. Ms. Hogan?
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark.
Aye.
Councilmember Houston.
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item D, resolution number 804, authorize city staff to surplus unused items.
Motion to approve?
Second.
I have a first and a second. Any questions or comments from community members or city council members?
Are you gonna do like an auction or any kind of a sale of the stuff, or?
It goes onto a website, but go ahead, Ms. Hogan.
Yes, so it goes on to a public surplus website.
So, a little bit of dialogue and conversation on this. The fire station at the roundabout that we have here, the fire station at Hunter Davidson, our Public Works building, and then also in our city hall. We have office chairs. We have old furniture. We've got binder clips. We've got a lot of old, outdated garbage. Yes, I made the decision, right, wrong, or indifferent, to spend $20,000 remodeling City Hall, new flooring, new paint, new desk, all of that. I've also advised staff, get rid of all this old junk. There's no reason for us to store things for 20 years down the road. Oh, we might need it. We're done storing junk. That old fire station at the roundabout, it should be able to be used for other things other than just storing garbage. And so I've directed them, and they've come up with piles and piles of stuff that is in City Hall and Hunter Davidson. I think that, hopefully we can get $3,000 to $5,000 recouped out of that. So instead of spending 20, we've only spent $17,000 to $15,000 to give our employees something great. So that is why we're doing this and why there is so much stuff there. Enough is enough. Comments or questions besides that from council?
Could you say one more time where people can go to look at what's being auctioned off?
It's called publicsurplus.com.
Yeah, yeah. So it will be on there after council approves this. Then we can go live onto the website. And if people would like to go into the location to see what's there, feel free to reach out to staff at City Hall, and they can take you in there. Okay. With that, I have a first and a second. Ms. Hogan.
Councilmember Hall.
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy.
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark.
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
Councilmember Houston.
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds.
Aye.
Councilmember Friend.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item E, authorize the mayor to sign memorandum of understanding with the Woodland Police Officers Association to establish a school resource officer.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a first and a second. Any questions or comments from the community or city council on this? Just come on up, sir.
Would the officer rotate from school to school or be assigned to just a specific school?
Yeah, so Chief can chime in here, but the chief and I and the guild president have met with Asha, the superintendent, and also the director of facilities from the school district. The city is paying 100% of this position. It has been budgeted in our budget here, kind of unconventional. Sometimes most school districts pay 50-50, but some will pay full. We're willing to pay the whole thing. We do have multiple schools here. There is not going to be an assignment to every single. That direction will be to go to each of the schools, spend time there and rotate through. I think one of the greatest things about a school resource officer is building trust with the children and the people in the schools and saying, oh, hey, I know who I can trust and who I can go to. So, absolutely. And they will be there for after-school activities and things as well. Okay? Anything you wanted to chime in with, Chief?
I just think this is a long time coming, and I'm really excited that it's finally in front of us, that we can move forward so that next year we can start the school year with running, and that these schools feel like there's somebody that is familiar, that these kids all are getting to know on a regular basis and feel like there's somebody they can count on to be there. So I'm excited about it.
Did you have something, Miss?
Nope.
Anyone else? Anyone from the community? Oh, sorry.
No, just kind of echoing what Ms. Dowdy said, I think it's a great opportunity to, and kind of piggybacking on what you said, to build that relationship with law enforcement and the kids in the school, and to feel like there's a safe haven, so to speak, that they can go to when things are happening that maybe aren't appropriate to bring up in other contexts. So really excited, and I'm grateful that we're able to do it.
Yeah. And Asha was unable to make it tonight. She fully supports this and is in favor, so it's not something where we're just putting something in the school district without their partnership here. Any other comments? All right, Ms. Hogan.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Freimark,
Aye.
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston.
Aye.
The ayes have it. Moving into action item F, ordinance 1572, Woodland Shores Rezone, final reading.
Make
Motion.
a motion to approve.
Second.
I have a first and a second. I see a lot of people here from the community on this, I think. Anybody would like to speak? Any comments, concerns, questions about this? Come on, you don't have to be bashful. Don't be shy.
Hello,
Come on up, sir.
my name's Nathan Bardu. I'm a fairly recent resident of Woodland. I live at Woodland Shores. And I just want to speak just the positive things that place has done for someone like me. I went through a hard time. Obviously, all kinds of different of us live there. I went through a hard time, and this place gives me a stable, safe, clean place to live near, restaurants, stores. I'm employed, and access to healthcare at the VA down in Portland and Vancouver, and it's been a godsend for me. And I just want to, really emphatically say that it's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you for speaking. Anyone else like to speak? Anyone from council? Miss.
I just want to say again that I am just so excited that this is finally coming to a closure. This is something that I started several years ago now. I think Mr. Goddard and I sat down in his office. I mean, I think I've been here 3.5 years now in this seat, and it started 2.5, 3 years ago maybe, that we sat and talked about it. And it was more the other homes coming into play, the other RV parks coming into town, and making sure that you guys weren't competing against their rules. And I think that we wanted to make sure that what you had stayed, that we weren't trying to change what you had. And so I think finding this solution has been great to have a final answer. And I'm just so excited for you guys to have finally come up with something that gives you guys a sense of security, that moving forward you guys have your home to feel secure about. And so I'm so excited that we have something now on paper that moving forward you don't have to worry about feeling like you're matching rules to everybody else, and that we have an answer for you guys. So thank you guys for trudging through all that we had to go through to get here, but I'm just so excited that you guys have gotten this far and bared with us as we went through all the paperwork to get you guys here. So congratulations.
Mr. Houston.
I just wanted to say it's more, I've seen that place since they opened, and it's been always just looks good, ran well, and that's what a good business looks like, and they've done a great job over the years of keeping it clean and nice
comments or questions about this, I would just like to say it's great to see you all here. I would hope that even if there's not something that is, exciting to you, please attend, come, be part of this, dialogue and conversation, because everyone does have a voice in our community. Ms. Hogan, do you want to take?
Councilmember Friend,
Aye.
Councilmember Hall,
Aye.
Councilmember Houston,
Aye.
Councilmember Dowdy,
Aye.
Councilmember Frymark,
Aye.
Councilmember Rounds,
Aye.
Councilmember Burke.
Aye.
The ayes have it. And before I move into workshop, I want to go back to that general facilities, why we were over budget. That was insurance. Right, wrong, or indifferent, we didn't have all of our parks insured. We didn't have all of our buildings and vehicles. And so Ms. Hogan went through and did a full inventory of everything, worked with our insurance broker, and made sure that every single piece of equipment and property that we owned here in the city was fully insured. And then obviously there was increases in insurance costs, premiums. So that was what that general services, that $300,000 was. So I just wanted to go back to that where people were like, what the hell is the matter with the mayor? He doesn't know what he's talking about. So that's what it was. So, okay. With that, it is now 7:47 and we will move into the workshop. You are all more than welcome to stay for the workshop, but I don't want anyone pressure, so if the people from Woodland Shores or anyone else would like to leave, we will.
Good luck to you.
Yep.
You guys aren't excused. You're not excused. It's not 8:30 yet. It'll be over by 8:30.
Yeah, have a good one, you guys.
How come the mayor gets to sign in?
All right. It is 7:48 and we will enter back into our workshop. So Mr. Goddard.
So I wanted to start by pointing out that we have the transportation chapter has been delivered to the city. It is available on the website. There's a lot of really good information on it, and I have a presentation that I presented to the Planning Commission that I can go over if you choose to, but I'll try and run through this one real quick because this is the one that's on the agenda. So the reason why we're talking about this is under the Growth Management Act, we're required to update the comprehensive plan every 8 years, and I'm going to kind of step back a couple years for those of you on the council who were not here at the time. And in addition to the periodic requirement, we balance the development activity that has occurred plus the changes in regulations and how they're going to affect us. Now, I'm going to keep coming back to two particular things, and that is we are on the same timeline as Clark County, which is 2025, so the draft will be presented to the Planning Commission and forwarded to you next month so that you can authorize me to submit it to the Department of Commerce to satisfy our grant. And Cowlitz County is just starting their process, and they are on the 2026 timeline, so they're a year behind us. Now, why that's important, I'll get into a little bit here. And I want you to know that what I've considered in this process as we go along, and that is county development patterns, the development of land within the city, because the last true update was 2015, so it's been almost 10 years. There's a lot of growth that's occurred. Also, the growth projections have changed. Our land supply has changed considerably. And of course, the utility rate affordability and the issues that came with the utility rates updates that the council had done previously. So based on my work plan, just to bring you up to date, so we had some ongoing requirements. We also do our retooling our code, which is kind of our annual list of quick fixes, whether it's spelling errors or that kind of stuff that is on there. Cowlitz County updated their flood hazard mitigation plan. We also entered into agreement with the county to do master plan for the bottoms, although we haven't had any progress on that. Climate change and resiliency goal, so that was completed at the end of 2023. And then we also drafted some housing code changes, which will come up as part of this update as well. So that's kind of the list of the stuff that we are looking at on the left, the individual chapters, and really on the right-hand side is the list of stuff that we've put a lot of effort into. Capital facilities update, which is a regular item, adding the climate resiliency stuff, land use, and the bottoms master plan. And I would wish I had added transportation to this, because our transportation plan, because we have exit 21 and then the industrial area study, we have a ton of traffic information, and so our consultant virtually rewrote the entire chapter, and there's a bunch of really good information in there, including some firm 2045 projections, and it's like a Cadillac of transportation chapters compared to what a lot of other jurisdictions have. Now, I wanted to point out that we are on this process where we're trying to get done by 2025, and so that's technically us in the green, Clark County in the blue, and we wanted to try and get the master's plan done this year, but we haven't made any progress on that, and so we're kind of in a holding pattern waiting for the county. Now, Cowlitz County is working on their comp plan update. So what's going to happen is we need to figure out when are we going to be able to update our comprehensive plan again at 26, 27, although we could theoretically wait our next update until 2033. So those are a lot of issues that are coming up, and so it would be nice if we knew what was going to happen in the bottoms so we could plan accordingly. And that's kind of the dilemma we're going to talk about today, why this is such a kind of a bee's nest of fiascos. So I want to go back a few years to the conversations we had about growth planning, because population projection is a side of that we need to bear in mind. So we have some documents, the 2016-2015 comp plan, the sewer plan, the water plan, they all use a 2.3% growth rate. And the urban growth management plan that we had with Cowlitz County back in 2002, it looked at growth rates of 2.53, 3.54, and in 2002 we settled on 3.6. So our numbers have changed over the years, and part of that is because as you get bigger, the population gets smaller in terms of percentage. So if you add 100 people a year, as you get bigger, that's a smaller and smaller percentage of your population growth. And then, of course, we deal with the Office of Financial Management, and their job is to do population estimates. And what the Office of Financial Management does is every 10 years when a census is done, they kind of take that as the basis, and then every year they go to each community and ask them, how many building permits did you issue, and how many houses were finished based on how many building permits you issued. So it's not a guess, it's not a statistical analysis. Really, it's kind of based on, okay, if you had 4 demolition permits and you issued 50 building permits, they can tell how many people, how many additional units your community have. So the line that wiggles back and forth, that's based upon the building permit projections, and then the straight line is kind of the average calculation. So really, when you look at that line, it was 2.7. So our water and sewer plan is based on how much additional water we use, theoretically, and our planning document was 3.6, so it looks like our water and sewer projections are a lot better than our population projection at the time. So for what it is. Now this is the Office of Financial Management. They have a high, a medium, and a low, and there's some other factors in there, and I just wanted to point that out, that in 2022, that's where we were. So of the state's estimates, we are on the low end of that. And so they're looking at numbers of 84, 76, 69, 62, and we are actually 65, 75. So again, sorry, I'll go back real quick. So again, we are growing slower than the state projected, let alone whether we projected in previous planning documents. So there's no magic to it. It's the best you can do based on that. Now, the other thing to bear in mind, and that is we had 2.7% growth up until 2022, and then of course we've had a bunch of homes, subdivision lots built, and so we're starting to get built on those. And so if you look at the last couple years, it's 2.3 because we only had 24 units built over the last 4 years. But if you look in the next 4 years, there's going to be like 200 units. So that might be closer to 3.6, 4.6 over the next 4 years. So you can see, especially when we're dealing with small communities, one subdivision blows a 10-year statistical analysis out of the water. So that's what I'm constantly trying to balance. So, and this is an example of that. Looks like it would be 3.9 by my calculations. And this was 2023 before we even started the building. But basically the analysis was 2.8% overall is probably where we were going to fall. And
so, Travis, I want to just one thing that to remind our community and people in the room and online and things. So again, this is inside the city limits. Within the city limits right now, we have these subdivisions, these 3 subdivisions that are going in, and we have, a couple, older lots where people have tore down a house and are trying to put 5 or 6 houses in one little lot there. Okay. If you look there, we have 30 acres roughly of land that is available inside the city limits that is buildable once these subdivisions are done. Okay? Put that thought in your head, and when you sit there and see your 3.9 and you say, okay, Woodland keeps growing, it's growing outside our city limits that are within the county. So again, if you look, and Travis and I have had this conversation, that 1/3 of the people that come off of exit 21 are here. Everyone else is scattered. So yes, that's 3.9% is within city limits here.
So on this next slide, it's a little more, gives you a little better idea of what the planning projections were, how we got where we are. Now, in 2023, the council had recommended that we use the 2.7% growth rate, and that would get us to a 2043 population of 11,505. So just to give you an idea of what the council gave me direction to kind of plan on. Now, the problem, of course, is how do I actually go about doing those calculations? And one of the things we bear in mind, and that is how many people are there per household. And Woodland has about 2.4 people in the average household. Clark County is a little bit higher, and Cowlitz County is substantially lower. So you look at the total number in the cities at the time, and that was 2465, so 2,400, almost 2,500 housing units. Clark County had almost 200,000 units, and Cowlitz County had almost 45,000 units. So the population off to the right is simply a calculation of 2.48 times, or actually I took the unit and the populations, divided them to get that number. So what's important to remember is we're looking forward, so the population projections that Clark County is using, their current population is just over 500,000, and they expect to grow by about 154,000 people, 155,000 people in the next 20 years. And Woodland, as a percentage, we are less than 1%. We're 0.03% of the county, and that's because we only have 55 housing units and 98 Woodlanders who live in Clark County. So to see what we're talking about here, and that is inside Horseshoe Lake, there are 55 housing units, and Cowlitz County's projection, just using their simple 0.03%, is they are going to assign us 105 housing units. So their expectation is we're going to add about 210 people inside of Horseshoe Lake, and that is kind of shocking. especially when you look at the critical areas map that applies to it. So that is high quality forested wetland with shoreline jurisdiction and regulation on top of it. So there's a very small footprint without having some significant environmental impacts. And this is kind of where we wrestle with growth management, in that there's 16 goals, and that is increase housing affordability, land use, logical decisions, plus environmental preservation, plus recreation and open space preservation. So you can't always do both, especially when you're dealing with a small jurisdiction like us. It's an impossible task for us to try and justify. So one of the things that we did, and that is we had a meeting with the Department of Commerce, and we said, look, 55 units to 100 and 160, we can't do it. Look at this critical area map. Can we do anything about this? No, because Clark County, they've done all of their work and they've assigned us what they've assigned us, and we can't stand in front of that train, nor would we want to. So we told Commerce, but we can move it to Cowlitz County because that's where basically 96% of our population is. Are you okay with that? And Commerce kind of rolled their eyes, and they know we're the stepchild problems, and they said, okay, there's no real tool that would allow us to do that, but you're so small, it's so small of a percentage, we're just gonna roll our eyes and look the other way and recognize that you have these constraints that you're gonna have to deal with later. And so hopefully that's how they're gonna come down when we actually do our draft. Now, Cowlitz County, their projection, they're taking the medium projection from the Office of Financial Management, and they expect their population to go from 111 to about 129. So they're adding about 17,000 net population. The problem that I'm having in that is they're expecting to add about 10,000 housing units according to their first. Now, they've only had a couple meetings, and so they've done rough numbers, and they recognize that this is a long process we're going to have to work through. But the fundamental question is 17,000 people in 10,000 homes. It should be 20,000 people in 10,000 homes. And so we're going to have to figure out how to reconcile that number. Gabe?
Do they have a minimum size? Like, what do they consider a unit? Like, how small can you go?
So we don't. So unfortunately, you can't regulate that. And it could be a significant number of those housing units are one-person homes or of studio apartments. Yeah. And I'm assuming that there's something in there, but I don't know why OFM calculated that the way it is. But theoretically, Woodland is 5.8% of Cowlitz County's population. So accordingly, with 10,000 units, for some reason they are looking at our 2,400 units and giving us a number that is kind of shocking. So what they did is they estimate, okay, of all of the housing they need to provide, 15% of it is going to go in Castle Rock, 20% in Kalama, 15 in Kelso, 15 in Longview, 20% in Woodland, and the rural county is going to absorb about 15% of that. Now, the reason why I say that's shocking is because we have 2,400 units, and Cowlitz County is giving us that number down in the third bullet. They estimate that Woodland is going to grow by 2,100 to about 2,300 housing units. So plus the 105 units from Cowlitz County is Cowlitz County appears to be expecting Woodland to double in size in the next 20 years. So in the fact that we've barely grown any in the last 10 years, well, a significant amount, but.
Do they consider? Go ahead. Sorry. Do they consider ADU a unit too?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Any kind of housing unit,
Okay.
mobile home, apartments, and single family home.
Okay.
And that's why I said we have 30 buildable acres inside the city limits.
Yeah. Yeah. So that number is huge, and so I purposely put this slide in here so that everybody can take a second and relax. That physical relief will help. And the reason why this is important, because we're bearing in mind that there is an existing residential land supply limit, and that utilities will need to grow, and we're not necessarily planning for that much growth at a 2.3% water and sewer rate. And so there are other factors that we will bear in mind. The fact that utility rates have been raised in recent years is a huge difference, because what it means is the city will be able to react to growth however fast it occurs, because we're just looking at population growth. We also have a large amount of commercial and industrial property that will grow our economic base in addition to the residential. Regardless of how quickly the residential grows, our utility and our capital facilities should be well positioned to be funded. Because I want you to bear in mind that planning is about everything, not just population and housing.
Based on the limited land availability.
Yep.
And the amount of housing population is expected to grow.
Yep.
And units of people per house.
Yep.
What's the mix of single-family homes compared to multifamily?
Okay, so that is a good question, and I will get to that. So he was asking about, have I thought, or have we put any effort into what type of housing units that's going to occur? And yes, so I will get into that, because that's exactly kind of why we're having this presentation today, because it's wonky numbers depending on which lens we look through. So I kind of want to tell you my approach so that you're not shocked when you see the documents. So what we did is we specifically asked our consultant, SCJ Alliance, to do a capacity analysis. And they looked at the residential land that was available and did what's called a vacant buildable lands calculation. So they looked at lots that are larger than 5,000 square feet, and they looked at the value of the buildings on those lots. So if it's 50,000 or less, so in other words, if it's a vacant property that's less than 50,000 in building, it might be an older home that's in disrepair, or an older structure, or it might be a house with a shop, and the shop is on its own lot. And the idea is at about the $50,000 mark, it's about at the price point where someone might say, well, I'll tear down my shop, put up a house, because I can make money with that. So that's kind of the number they looked at. And then they looked at the residential codes that we have in place, and they calculated -5% for roads and water lines and sewer lines, and for public facilities and infrastructure. And then they add back a market factor, knowing that there are a lot of people who are under that, who are just not going to develop in the next 20 years. They'll keep their shop, no thank you, no tearing it down, no reselling. So they kind of balance that all out. And then this map is available online, and it kind of shows you the undeveloped lots and the underdeveloped lots where we could accommodate this growth over the next 20 years. But that's not enough. They took a look at our zoning code, and they said each of our zoning code allows between 5 and 35 units. But the reality is your development potential is a lot less. So you could fit 5, but you probably get 4. You could fit 30, or 35, but you might get 30. And so that number is kind of self-correcting, and they calculated that as well. And so there's a bunch of capacity analysis where they talk about how many units are in there, how much is available at the maximum density versus the allowed or the assumed actual development density. And then they also looked at what types of homes could occur in each zone. And off to the right, you'll see, you'll have a lot of information in the comprehensive plan and the housing study about the affordability. And that's based on the average median income for the community. So single family home is considered low density, higher income, meaning that you have to earn about 120% of the average median income, which for Woodland is about $54,000. So theoretically, you can afford a single family home in Woodland if you make in the $75,000 to $80,000 range. And then the medium density, the townhomes and the apartments versus the high density, which is really more of the apartments. It's for between 0 and 80% of the median income, and that's kind of where our zoning plays out on that. And so we go through these calculations and come up with some numbers, and what they find is we have a surplus or a deficit in individual areas. In Cowlitz County, we have land available to develop. That's about the 30 acres that the mayor was talking about. It's the lion's share of that. And as I mentioned previously, we are under prepared for 105 units in Cowlitz, or in Clark County, and so that's kind of what you see reflected here. And in the end, what their estimate is that that we have about 570 units capacity, and that's what we have available for us for that 20-year development. So you can see here that the 570, and I'll talk about the 700 units that are, including some that are in the pipeline, that is a woefully short number considering the 2,300 number, 2,400 number that the county, that both counties expect to delegate us over the next 20 years. So that's what I'm trying to reconcile with this effort. So really there's three moving pieces that I talked about: the 105 units and our 700 unit availability, and dealing with the Cowlitz County and what to do with that 2,200, that's hard. Now, part of the problem that I've been wrestling with for so long, I've been talking to literally some of you like Carol. For the 8 years I've been here, I seem to always be talking about comprehensive plans and plan updates and housing, and it never seems to come to fruition. And that's because we get back to this issue of Cowlitz County is just starting, and right as I get to the finish line, I get the Woodland surprise, and that is, oh, 2,200 units. So now I finally have something to talk about after our entire process and public engagement is done. Now I have this number to wrestle with.
Is there any way of rezoning, like any light industrial stuff on the bottoms to residential?
So we could, and that always is an option, but typically that is considered a down zone unless an applicant applies. And we haven't had any applicants apply for changes to the comp plan since 2018. So we had 9 of them come through at that point, and we approved some of them, but a lot of them were external expansion requests, and we didn't get any. We haven't had any since then. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question. You say the county is providing you with these expectations? The county of Cowlitz and Clark for the 105. Longview's got a population of close to 40,000. Woodland's got a population of close to 7,000. Say, there's a factor of 5.5 or 6 times the population between the two cities. When they say 15 for Longview, 20 for Woodland, I'm missing something here. I mean, that's I know I'm a new guy on the board, but this looks like it's not only doable, but whoever suggested that, I would suggest them not doing what they're doing anymore, because they're incompetent, to say the least. How could they possibly expect the small town of Woodland to literally produce 8 to 10 times as many more housing units per citizen as the biggest town around is Longview? Why is that?
What was your exact question?
So Longview's got close to 40,000 people, and they're expected to only take 15% of the growth. Woodland is 5 or 6 times smaller, but they're expected to take 20% of it. There's a factor of 8 to 10 wrong there. What am I missing?
Well, you're not missing anything. The only thing that you might have missed, and that is this is their first whack at the numbers, and they have not settled on anything. And part of what I'm here to do is to point out that I would love anyone on the council who might be interested in joining me in the Cowlitz County planning meetings, because those are monthly meetings where they're trying to go through this, and they are looking to get people involved in that process. So I want you to know that I do go to those meetings, and I am constantly poking the bear, which is my standard response, and that is I keep pointing out these questions, and hopefully we can't kick the can down the road anymore, because this is a fundamental question we need to get answered. And the reason why this is important is sorry I doubled that one, is what does this mean for you? And this is probably the next few slides that are important to you. Well, we have several options. You can go crazy and go for extreme densities like downtown Seattle, downtown Vancouver. Those are the options. You can triple, quadruple, maybe 5 times the current density, but I'm not sure we would even be able to accomplish it if we tried. 5 plexes, 6 plexes, that may not even get us there.
Yeah.
And it's the fundamental GMA problem, and that is we're trying to preserve the character of our community while meeting the growth requirements. And it's almost like growth management is forcing us to ignore certain goals in order to achieve other goals.
You say there was a train involved in this?
And I don't know how to balance that.
Well, I'll be glad to stay in front of that train with you. Anytime you need help on that, this is insanity. Somebody needs to tell these people.
Now
we don't want our town to grow like that. But exit 21 is bad enough now. I can't imagine it after increase like this.
Yeah, and that's in the transportation section, which we may or may not get to. Tonight, I should say. So there's also the moderate changes, so we can do things to tweak our code to come into compliance with RCWs. We can make it a little easier to do accessory dwelling units, you know, aging in place so that seniors can get a rentable space on their property so that they can continue to live in their homes, or they could even move into the nice new ADU and rent the house, and it would make the mortgage payment plus give them some income. So there's ways that we can do that. We had talked about duplexes on corners and infilled, so we had gone through that and drafted that, but didn't adopt it. The other thing we need to do is we need to recognize that we have to buy time. So we have a 700 unit growth capacity, which means we don't necessarily have to make a decision for our 20-year growth now. And that's why I had put that slide up there that we can make a commitment to update our comprehensive plan in a year, 2 years, or 3 years after we know what Cowlitz County is going to do. But ultimately, the comprehensive plan needs to be, we need to have the draft in June, and we have to adopt something by the end of this year that at least buys us that time. And I think that what has been drafted meets that standard, and so I encourage you to take a look at it. It is not a major rewrite, it's mostly just revisiting the goals and policies that were established 10 years ago, and if you like where we are now, then theoretically you should be able to like where we're going to be in the next 10 to 20 years. The community has not changed that much. So most of what has changed is we've updated the analysis, but the goals and policies are pretty much standard. We've taken a realistic look at our housing, at the existing capacity, but we have to recognize that to accommodate that 1,600 units that are being put on us, the counties are going to have to update the urban growth boundary. Now this is frustrating because the effort that we did in 2018-2019, we talked about 6 different growth scenarios from no changes all the way to expanding our urban growth boundary to include the entire bottoms so that we could do our own sub-area plan and decide how best the bottoms could develop, and that we would be prepared for that growth, knowing that we are not going to be able to annex that whole area because under the Growth Management Act, you can only annex the area that's needed to accommodate your growth. But it doesn't mean that we can't do a 50-year plan for the bottoms and then every year annex 10 acres or 2 acres or 40 acres, depending on how much development we have and how many jobs we create, and we know how many houses we need. That's kind of the idea behind the Growth Management Act, as opposed to this mandate that requires us to take this giant gulp of land that you neither want nor can we afford to provide services for.
Now, is Cowlitz County a GMA now?
So they are not. They are what's called a partially planning growth, which means they have to have critical area ordinances and they have to have a comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan has to plan for a reasonable amount of growth, which for them is 1,100 units or 11,000 people and, 17,000 people and the 10,000 units. So that's kind of their obligation is to do that. Now, hopefully they will drill down into those numbers and understand that that number that they picked affect Woodland differently than it does Longview and Kelso because of just the sheer size.
What if the growth just declines? Like, I think a lot of people are going to be moving out of the state in the next 10 years.
Yeah, so in that case, our 20-year plan would become a 50-year plan because if the growth doesn't occur, we don't need the capital facility investments for an additional well and additional schools and additional fire stations. So if it doesn't occur, we just need to know what we're going to do if it does occur.
Just, I think last time we discussed this, I had asked the question about what happens if the city's non-compliant or we can't get there. Because we could always choose to say, but what do we lose? Because I think you should maybe speak to that just a little bit.
That is a good question. Ultimately, we could be out of compliance with the Growth Management Act, and the state could take a hard line on us. I don't know that we necessarily need to worry about that simply because we are such a small fry, and they recognize that we're torn between these two counties. We have this 0.03% population in Clark County, yet it mandates us, it bullies us into fully planning under the Growth Management Act because of those 98 Woodlanders. And I think the state recognizes that, and I kind of got that feeling after our conversation about what do I do with these 105 units. And their answer was they have so many other big problems and all these unfunded mandates and growth management inconsistencies. I think they're unlikely to, zero in on our problems, but theoretically the law is the law, and if push came to shove, they would have to take action against us for not being compliant.
What about giving that back to Clark County and taking it out of the city limits of City of Woodland?
Because there's no, I guess there is a tool, but it would be like asking them to unring the bell and start their analysis again. And I'm sure there are other communities that would be happy to absorb that growth, but it's kind of the simple solution. And since they're not doing special calculations for us, they're not doing special calculations for the other cities. And I think they pick that route simply because it's easy to do a statistical analysis because you can defend it. But once you start making exceptions, everybody wants an exception. And so that's why I kind of looked at that number and said, okay, what do we really want Commerce to have us do? And Commerce said, okay, yeah, do what you can. And so that's kind of how we got where we are. And that's kind of it. Any questions? So for those of you who couldn't hear, Aaron's question was, is there anything we can do about that? And is there any way to change that paradigm of the fact that we're stretched between the two counties? There isn't anything we can do about that unless I believe we would have to amend the statewide constitution to change the boundary of the county. I don't know if there's any way for us to unannex the portion of the city that is in Clark County. There's been a discussion, and my understanding is there's no formal tool for doing that. And probably the easiest way to fix this would be to convince Cowlitz County to become fully planning under the Growth Management Act. And I could imagine how impossible that would be. And so if that's our most reasonable option, my guess is there's no realistic option.
We can have more conversation on that, Travis, but that's a no.
Yeah. But the other thing I often point out, and that is the one benefit that we have of being in the Growth Management Act is we have a lot of extra tools that other communities like Kalama and rural Cowlitz County don't have. Specifically the impact fees. That's how we fund a large part of paying off our fire district equipment and the fire station that we built. We also contribute a significant amount of money with new growth going into the schools, so they get a big check every time we build a house. We also collect significant traffic impact fees and park impact fees. And Roddy can tell you that that money is vital when we want to do, you know, if we can leverage those funds 10 to 1 for grants. You know, if we bring in $1 million, we could do a $10 million series of park improvements, and that's a significant benefit that we would not get. And I continually tell you about my Poke the Bear letters, where I'm constantly asking Cowlitz County, please collect money for our roads, please collect money for our schools, please collect money for our parks, because right now we're bearing that full burden, even though 30% of the students and 55% of our park users are not even from the city of Woodland, but our developers and our residents are bearing that funds. So for all of its pain in the neck, there are benefits to the Growth Management Act that do result in real improvements in the community.
Yeah, I have a question about that subject of parks. Do we have to tell the GMA what we're going to do in terms of parks and development?
So we have a Parks and Rec plan that was last updated in 2023. I think it was before you were on the council. And there is a chapter in the comprehensive plan that incorporates that. And we don't have to give them specifics, but our park impact fees have to be built specifically on capacity improvements. So we have to build new equipment or new facilities, whether that's a new restaurant at new restroom at Horseshoe Lake, or a good parking area, I think is one of the things, whether it's a splash pad, it's some kind of new recreation facility. We can't spend that money on maintenance or repair or changing.
It has to be something new.
Yeah.
And that's part of my concern, is because since that last study was done, we have adopted new impact fees, as you talked about. And the park impact fees that we will collect are mostly on the northeast side of town. We don't have any place over there for parks except Scott Hill Park. Is it possible that we could channel money out of the impact fees for parks into the opening and development of Scott Hill so we can get that open and going?
We have the Parks Now by Gun Club, don't we?
So Scott Hill Park is on the comprehensive plan, and it would be considered a capacity expansion, as would new facilities at Horseshoe Lake. We've also had like 2% discussions with Pacific Corps and the fisheries, the fish hatchery that they have up there across from the school. You know, whether or not we could ever convince them to allow us to put a park there that serves that part of the city. There are a lot of options, and you know, right now, until we get a critical mass of impact fees, we're, you know, Riley would be able to answer that better for you, but part of it is my job is to just keep banging the drum and collecting those funds, raising them as often and as frequently as I can.
Yeah, and we're just now entering the busy new construction period, and with the new impact fees, this summer could, you know, begin to really build that project. So, just thoughts.
Yeah.
So on the impact fees, I mean, you bring up a good point. So we've collected a couple $100,000 in 2024 of impact fees. So again, when we went through those financials and our funds grew, it was not impact fees drawing that. I mean, a couple $100,000 was, you know, peanuts on there. We have collected a few $100,000 of impact fees in 2025. They've heard me numerous times. We are not spending any of those dollars. They are sitting there in reserved accounts, and this is a one-time opportunity that we as a city will get with these. We're not going to see another 300 homes come into our community, and now is the time for us to really plan and say, okay, what are we going to do with those impact fees, instead of, you know, spending a little money here, spending a little bit of money here. So that is the direction we've gone there, and once we, you know, if you all come up with ideas or want something to do with those impact fees, feel free to reach out. We can have that dialogue and conversation, but for right now, it's all sitting in their accounts and not moving.
Yeah, and that's why, just in my mind, the big significant opportunity we have as a community is Scott Hill Park. Once it's open, but we're 15 years down the road putting this thing together. Once it's open, it's gonna impact a lot of things, and if we're objective like you're talking about, and specifically target the development of that with the new
Yeah.
dollars that.
And I mean, we're in workshops, we have this dialogue and conversation between Scott Hill Park, for example. I think there would have to take a little bit more conversation here. So our total park impact fees, and I don't have the budget in front of me, I wanna say it's around 320, so call it $300,000 is what we're planning on, receiving from those 300 homes. Just $300,000 for Scott Hill Park, does that move the dial, or is that just putting that $300,000 in there? So that's why I say there's more dialogue and conversation there, because I think my view here is that 300,000, I want to have it as an impact that is like boom at the end. Here, look, Woodland, what we did. So
Agreed.
anyway, I'm not shutting you down or anything.
Yeah, no, I understand totally.
Perfect. Yep. I have another hand over here.
No.
Okay. Anything else? Any comments or questions from the community on this? I guess in closing, I would kind of say, and dialogue that the management team and I have had over the last, 12 months, 13 months, and as we've had dialogue with Cowlitz County, we've had dialogue with Clark County. Obviously, I can't speak for council here. I can't speak for everyone in the community, but I can certainly speak, where I come from and my views, and what I hear a lot of is I'm not interested in Woodland growing here and putting hundreds of houses and growing substantially and boom, here. We like the community, we like the small town feel of it. We need to do it, whatever changes and whatever growth there is gonna be, we need to do it very manageable and what makes sense for us. And that's why I keep hitting on that 30 acres, because if you really wanna get down to the brass tacks here, for you to get to 700 homes, 800 homes, anywhere north of that, it's gonna come down to annexation. That's what people need to start thinking about. Is that what they wanna do? Again, I've got my views, everybody has a view on it, but that's the only way you're gonna get to that 700 homes.
You made the point of annexation, and I think, so if we went in that direction, you also are making an assumption that whoever owns the property that's now being annexed is willing to part ways with it and develop it. So, I mean, I guess that's an element to always consider.
100%.
Well, and I guess my thought is that if we're going to build on any property outside of Woodland anyways, we need to annex so that the city's getting the tax dollars and it's not just out there for the county to take. So if we're going to build on the outskirts of town, we need to be annexing so that our city can benefit from the money.
It's more the infrastructure is what we need.
Right.
But
Because
again, when we think of annexation, I'm not saying yay or nay here, I just want people to think about it. When you think of annexation and you're outside in the county, they have a 5-acre minimum. You annexate.
2 acre.
Some are 2, yeah, but I mean, a lot of what is out there right now is,
Cowlitz is 2.
You annex, you're gonna have, 7, 8 houses per acre. So,
But, and on that subject, when we did, Travis had the thing on the website for a long time about the people giving input on what their preferences were.
Survey.
And if I remember right, it was like 55% favorable toward the cottage-style house. Of all the choices that were out there, that was the big one. And so those are small homes, they're probably close together. They're not high density, obviously they're not apartments or whatever. But that was the style that people in Woodland said, that's our preference. Something small, and targeting probably seniors and maybe newlyweds and like that. Am I right about that? It's
Yep.
55%,
Yep.
I think.
And that's kind of in the last slide where I talked about the opportunities that we do have without major rewriting and maximum densities. We can tweak it with ADUs and different housing styles. That's the kind of fixes that is a lot more palatable for Woodland.
Director, you got a guesstimate on the ADUs? I'm all for ADUs. I kind of like that idea. I think you'll find that quite popular because that benefits locals as much as anything else. What would you guesstimate would be the number of units possible in round figures if we encourage that?
So between the five, assuming 700 is the high density, 500 is probably more realistic. And really kind of what the news I'm giving you today in that is, I'm going on the assumption that you want to continue with the policies and the goals and policies that were in place, and therefore the focus of this comprehensive plan update is that up to 700 units. I am not doing significant analysis to accommodate this magic 2100 to 2300 that has appeared in the last couple months. I am instead going to present you something that I think represents the city of Woodland that you can support this year. Let's wait and see what Cowlitz County does, since we've been asking them to hurry and they are on their own timeline. I think you literally need to recognize that I have done what you pay me for, and that is to look out for the citizens of the city. And we are just going to do our best and hope that the growth management and the Department of Commerce don't take our head off in the accident. They're going to recognize that it's a small fender bender and that we will be back in a few years to reevaluate where we are. And the councils in the future are going to have to wrestle with those annexations. They don't have to annex, but GMA wants us to make sure that we're thinking about those in the future. And I'm comfortable that we are going to have a comp plan that will allow us to approach that future when it comes.
Well, I think 700 is a bit high no matter what. But I'll be glad to stand in front of that train with you if you'd like.
And that 700 does include the 150 lot subdivision that are being constructed. There's also the 60 across the street. There's also the 250 apartment complexes that is now 100. So when we're talking about 500 in the long run, really there's like 300 and 350 that are out there now. So we really are going to have 5 to 7 years worth of growth before we really have to address this question of annexation.
So back to my question on ADUs. You got a guess on the number we could accommodate?
501, I think, is the most reliable number that I saw.
Just ADUs.
Oh, just ADUs. Unfortunately, that number is, I think we've had 2 in the 8 years I've been here, and unless we change the code, that's all we're going to get in the next 8 years. So what we're going to get, because we haven't changed that code, is the Washington Street subdivisions where you take out the 50,000 house and you replace it with 5 or 6 that are crowded in there, because we don't have ADUs, because we don't have cottages, because we don't have the diversity in our code that we talked about but never got around to adopting. We can fix that though, and that'll be the first thing on my list after you see this and have your heart attack. You take your breath, and then you ask me to work on the next thing that's important to you.
Thank you, Travis, for the presentation.
Any other questions or comments? I want to apologize. I was texting and emailing on my phone here. I didn't want people to think I wasn't paying attention. Emily, I want to shout out to Emily, our attorney, and say thank you. We thought that we had an individual here who was trying to hijack our meeting. Fortunately, Amanda has set up our meetings here where you can't unmute. I have to unmute them here. So anyway, I didn't want people to think that, oh, what's the mayor up there doing? But I was dealing with that issue here and paying attention at the same time. So any other questions or comments here with the workshop? All right, the time is now 8:40 and we will go back.
Motion to end meeting.
Second.
With that, it is 8:40. Have a great night, everyone.